The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been going for 3 hours, and Ambassador Chen knew they were losing. She stood in the massive chamber, a space so large that 47 different alien species could each have their own section. The holographic display in the center showed the horror unfolding across human space. Red markers indicated colonies that had gone silent. Each red marker represented millions of human lives. The Krathek swarm had appeared 6 weeks ago from beyond the outer rim. Nobody knew where they came from. Nobody cared anymore. What mattered was what they did. They consumed everything. Entire worlds were stripped of life in days. The biomass was absorbed into their hive ships. The technology was copied and improved. They were a plague that grew stronger with every victory. Humanity's frontier colonies were directly in their path. New Shanghai had fallen first, then Victoria Prime, then the agricultural worlds of the Demeter cluster. Earth had sent its defense fleets, but they were too few and spread too thin. The distress calls were desperate. Children were being evacuated on ships that would never make it to safety. The Krathek were too fast. Ambassador Chen had invoked Article 7 of the Mutual Defense Treaty. It was supposed to be simple. When a council member was attacked, all members responded with military force. That was the promise. That was why Earth had joined 30 years ago. But promises, Chen was learning, were easy to break when you were far from danger. The Zelthan representative spoke first. His translator device made his clicking sounds into cold, calculated words. Humanity's colonies are regrettable losses, but strategically insignificant. We must consider the greater good of the Council. Chen felt her jaw tighten. Strategically insignificant? There are 12 billion humans in those systems. And there are 4 trillion Council citizens in the core worlds, replied Ambassador Thexler of the Vrin Collective. Her 4 eyes blinked in sequence. If we commit our fleets to defend the human frontier, we leave our own worlds vulnerable. The treaty doesn't have an exception for inconvenience, Chen said. Her voice was rising. She knew she should stay calm, but her homeworld of New Beijing was in the 3rd wave of evacuations. Her sister was down there trying to get children onto transport ships. The Quelon representative, a being of pure energy contained in a crystalline structure, flickered with what might have been sympathy. We understand your distress, Ambassador, but you must understand our position. Humanity joined the Council only 3 decades ago. Your military contributions have been minimal. Your technology is adequate but not advanced. Your tactical doctrines are untested against a threat of this magnitude. So we're expendable because we're new. Chen's hands were shaking. Not expendable, corrected the Archon of the Stellar Dominion. Acceptable losses. We will mount a defense at the threshold line. Your people should evacuate to core worlds. We will shelter your refugees. Chen looked around the chamber. 47 species. Advanced civilizations that had been traveling the stars for thousands of years. Not one of them was willing to help. They had made their calculations. They had weighed the costs. Humanity was not worth saving. She accessed her personal communicator and opened a secure channel to Earth. The connection took 3 seconds to establish across the light years. When Fleet Admiral Sarah Volkov's face appeared, Chen didn't need to explain. Volkov could see it in her eyes. They voted no, Chen said quietly. Volkov's expression didn't change. She had expected this. All of them? 47-0. They're abandoning us to buy themselves time. There was a long silence on the other end. Then Volkov nodded slowly. Recall all our ambassadors. Close all our embassies. Cut all communications with Council space. Chen felt something break inside her chest. 30 years of diplomatic work erased in a moment. But she also felt something else. Something hot and angry. What are we going to do? Volkov smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. We're going to remind the galaxy why humans survived on Earth for 200,000 years. Tell them one more thing before you leave. What? Tell them that we'll remember who our friends were when this is over. Chen turned back to the assembled council. They were already moving on to other business. The human crisis had been resolved in their minds. She activated the public address system one final time. Representatives of the Galactic Council. Her voice echoed through the chamber. Humanity acknowledges your decision. We release you from all treaty obligations. We withdraw from the Council effective immediately. She paused, letting that sink in. And we will remember this day. We will remember who stood with us. We will remember who turned away. The chamber fell silent. The Zeldan representative clicked something that the translator rendered as confusion. You cannot survive this alone. Chen picked up her datapad and began walking toward the exit. Then no help is coming, she said over her shoulder. I guess we'll have to save ourselves. As she left the chamber, Chen allowed herself one moment of emotion. Tears ran down her face. Not from sadness, from rage. They thought humanity was weak. They thought humans would run and hide and beg for scraps of protection. They were about to learn the truth. Back on Earth, in the secure military command center buried 3 miles beneath the Swiss Alps, Admiral Volkov entered a code that had been created 30 years ago. It had been waiting since the day humanity first met alien life. Since the day humanity realized they were not alone in a friendly universe, the code had a name. Protocol Ragnarok. Across 200 human worlds, hidden systems began to wake up. In the cold darkness of the Oort clouds, automated factories started their assembly lines. In the deep asteroid fields, mothballed warships began their activation sequences. On Earth, 2 billion reserve soldiers received a single message on their personal devices. The message was simple. Report for duty. War has begun. The galaxy thought humanity would run. They thought wrong. Humanity had been preparing for this exact scenario since the moment they learned they were not the strongest species in the stars. The Galactic Council had made their choice. Now they would live with the consequences, and so would the Krathic swarm. Admiral Sarah Volkov walked through the command center as status reports flooded in from across human space. Every screen showed the same thing: activation, mobilization, war. Most species would have panicked. Most civilizations would have collapsed into chaos when their government declared total war. But humans had been preparing for this moment since first contact. It had started 53 years ago, when the probe returned from Alpha Centauri. Dr. Richard Hammond had been the first human to see the alien structure orbiting Proxima b, a space station. Proof that humans were not alone. That moment had changed everything. The governments of Earth had made a decision. They called it the First Contact Protocol. The public version was simple. Hope for peace. Prepare for the best. Welcome our new neighbors with open arms. The classified version was different. Hope for peace. Prepare for war. Never be caught defenseless again. When the Zeldan made formal contact 5 years later, humanity presented itself carefully. They showed their art, their music, their literature. They demonstrated fusion reactors and basic FTL drives. They signed treaties and opened embassies. They smiled and nodded and played the role of eager students learning from advanced civilizations. But in the shadows, humanity built something else entirely. Volkov pulled up a holographic display that showed the full scope of Operation Darkside. The name was a joke from the planning committee. The dark side of humanity. The side they didn't show the aliens. The numbers were staggering. In 30 years of peaceful membership in the Galactic Council, humanity had constructed the largest military infrastructure in known space. 473 automated shipyards hidden in Oort clouds across 50 star systems, each one capable of producing a warship every 18 hours. They had been building in secret for decades. 10,000 ships sat in cold storage, ready for activation. The mining operations in the asteroid belts were actually weapons foundries. The deep space research stations were actually military listening posts. The commercial shipping routes were actually military supply lines. Every single human colony had been militarized from day one. The public saw farmers and families. What they didn't see were the bunker networks, the weapons caches, the training facilities. Every colonist received basic military training. Every settlement had a militia. Every system had a defensive grid. The Galactic Council thought humans were soft. They looked at Earth and saw a species that had finally left behind its violent past. They saw the art galleries and universities and thought humanity had evolved beyond war. They were looking at the surface. They never bothered to look deeper. Volkov's second-in-command, General Marcus Webb, approached with a datapad. Ma'am, activation is proceeding ahead of schedule. The sleeper fleet is powering up across all sectors. Mobilization of reserve forces is at 87%. What about the shipyards? Online and producing. First wave of new construction will be ready in 48 hours. Webb paused. The Council intelligence networks are detecting our power signatures. They're sending observation ships. Deny them access to all human space. If they try to enter our systems, escort them out. Politely but firmly. They're going to realize we've been building all this time. Volkov smiled grimly. Good. Let them wonder what else we've been hiding. The truth was that humanity had learned from its own history. Every war, every conflict, every mistake had been studied and analyzed. The lesson was always the same. Peace was precious, but only strength could protect it. The strong did what they wanted. The weak suffered what they must. Humanity would never be weak again. The human defense doctrine was simple. Every human world must be able to defend itself for 90 days without support. Every fleet must be able to strike deep into enemy territory. Every soldier must be trained to win against superior numbers. Never fight fair. Never give the enemy a chance, and most importantly, never let anyone know your true strength until it was too late for them to prepare. The Galactic Council had banned certain weapons as barbaric and unethical. Nuclear weapons were forbidden. Artificial intelligence in warfare was prohibited. Cyber warfare was outlawed. Chemical and biological weapons were crimes against civilization. Humanity had never signed those treaties. Earth's representatives had smiled and nodded in the council chambers, but they never put their signature on the documents. A technicality, a loophole, a way to keep every option available, because humans knew something the council had forgotten. War was not about being ethical. War was about winning. And the species that won was the species that survived. Volkov opened another display. This one showed troop numbers. 2 billion reserve soldiers were reporting for duty. On Earth alone, there were 500 million trained personnel ready to deploy. Every human world was the same. The civilian population was actually a sleeping military force. The HFY Krathik had picked the wrong species to attack. A communication request came through from the XL, then observation. Ship at the edge of human space. Volkov accepted it. The alien ambassador appeared on screen, his antennae twitching with agitation. Admiral Volkov, we are detecting massive military activity across all human systems. This was not disclosed during your council membership. We demand an explanation. Ambassador, Volkov replied calmly. Humanity is responding to an existential threat. We are mobilizing our defense forces. Defense forces? The Zeldin's translator struggled with his clicking. We are reading power signatures consistent with 10,000 capital ships, mining operations that are actually weapons foundries, research stations that are military installations. You have been deceiving the council for decades. We never lied about anything, Ambassador. We just never told you everything. Volkov leaned forward. You want to know the truth? Here it is. Humanity has been preparing for war since the day we met you. Every smile was real. Every treaty was honored. Every friendship was genuine. But we never forgot that the universe is dangerous. We never forgot that civilizations fall when they're not ready to defend themselves. This is a violation of, we're not members of your council anymore, remember? You abandoned us. So now we operate under our own rules. Volkov's eyes were cold. Now please exit our space. We have a war to fight. The transmission cut off. Webb looked at his commander with something like awe. Ma'am, you just told the entire Galactic Council that we've been militarizing in secret for 30 years. They were going to find out anyway. Volkov pulled up the tactical display showing the Krathek advance. Besides, we want them to know. We want them to wonder. We want them to lose sleep thinking about what else we've been building. And what have we been building? Volkov smiled. Everything we need to win. Across human space, the sleeper fleet came to life. Warships that had been dark and cold for years began to glow with power. Crews rushed to their stations. Weapon systems came online. The United Earth Defense Force was ready. The galaxy was about to learn a hard lesson. Humans were good at peace, but they were even better at war. The Krathek swarm expected an easy victory at the threshold system. They had crushed 6 human colonies already. Each time the humans had fought with their small defense fleets and lost. Each time the swarm had grown stronger by absorbing the biomass and technology. The pattern was clear. Humans were weak prey. The Swarm Queen sent 3,000 bioships to Threshold. It was enough to overwhelm any defense the humans could mount. The hive mind was already calculating how many new warriors they could breed from the human population. Then the human fleet arrived, and everything changed. Admiral Volkov stood on the bridge of the UEDF flagship Indomitable and watched 2,000 human warships drop out of FTL in perfect formation. This was First Fleet, the tip of humanity's spear. Every ship was crewed and ready. Every weapon was loaded. Every captain knew the plan. All ships, this is Volkov. Battle stations. Today we stop running. Today we show them what humans do when you threaten our homes. She paused, letting the moment sink in. Fire at will. What happened next would be studied by military academies for centuries. The human fleet didn't try to match the swarm ship for ship. They didn't form a defensive line. They attacked like wolves hunting prey. Small groups of ships, 6 to 10 vessels each, swarmed individual swarm ships. They struck from multiple angles, coordinated by combat AI that predicted enemy movements with terrifying accuracy. The Galactic Council had banned artificial intelligence in warfare. They said it was unethical. Humans said it was effective. The first swarm bioship died in under 30 seconds. Human railguns fired projectiles at relativistic speeds. The kinetic energy was devastating. Armor that had shrugged off Council energy weapons was torn apart like paper. The bioship tried to regenerate, but the damage was too extensive. Then the nuclear missiles arrived. The Council had banned nuclear weapons 3,000 years ago. They said atomics were barbaric. Humans said they worked. The warhead detonated inside the swarm ship's core, and the entire vessel vanished in a flash of light. No regeneration. No recovery. Just death. The Krathek hive mind experienced something new. Surprise. The swarm tried to adapt. They always adapted. That was their strength. But humans didn't give them time. Wave after wave of attacks hit different ships. The coordination was perfect. The timing was lethal. Every 30 seconds, another swarm vessel died. Captain Maria Rodriguez commanded the destroyer Relentless. Her ship was small by fleet standards, but fast and deadly. She led a wolf pack of 8 vessels against a swarm-heavy cruiser. The enemy ship was 3 times larger than any ship in her group. All units pattern Delta. Hit them from above and below simultaneously, targeting their propulsion nodes. Rodriguez felt the familiar rush of combat. This was what humans were built for. Fire on my mark. 3, 2, 1 mark. 8 ships fired as one. 16 railgun slugs hit the swarm ship's engines. The bioship lurched and began to spin. Before it could recover, Rodriguez's second wave hit. Missiles, dozens of them. Some carried nuclear warheads. Some carried something worse, chemical weapons. The swarm ships were biological. They were living creatures engineered for war but still alive. That made them vulnerable to toxins that would be useless against mechanical ships. Human chemical weapons burned through bioarmor like acid. The swarm ship writhed in agony as its own flesh betrayed it. Target destroyed, Rodriguez reported. Moving to next target. Across the battlefield, the same scene repeated 100 times. The swarm was being torn apart by an enemy they had underestimated completely. The hive mind tried to coordinate a retreat, but human cyber warfare teams had already infiltrated their communication networks. Lieutenant Chen Min sat in a darkened room aboard the Indomitable, his hands flying across holographic keyboards. He and 50 other cyber warfare specialists were fighting a battle the swarm couldn't see. They inserted false orders into the hive network. They corrupted targeting data. They made swarm ships fire on each other. The Council said cyber warfare was dishonorable. Humans said it saved lives. I've got 3 ships thinking their allies are enemies, Chen reported with satisfaction. Watch this. On the tactical display, 3 swarm vessels suddenly opened fire on their neighbors. The confused targets returned fire. Within seconds, 6 ships were destroying each other while human forces watched. Admiral Volkov allowed herself a small smile. Brutal but effective. Continue operations. The Battle of Threshold lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the swarm had lost 2,300 ships. Human losses were 147 vessels. It was the most one-sided victory in recent galactic history. But what shocked the Council observers was not just the victory. It was how humans fought. They didn't try to disable ships. They destroyed them completely. They didn't take prisoners. They didn't offer surrender terms. They simply killed everything in their path. When swarm bioships tried to regenerate, humans hit them again and again, until nothing remained but debris. The Galactic Council had been monitoring the battle from a safe distance. Ambassador Thexler of the Vrin Collective watched the tactical feed with growing horror. They're not trying to capture technology, she said quietly. They're not studying the enemy. They're just killing. The Zeldan observer clicked in agreement. Their weapons violate 17 different Council laws. Nuclear weapons, chemical weapons, cyber attacks, combat AI, they're fighting like barbarians. No, corrected the Quellon representative. They're fighting to win. There's a difference. After the battle, Admiral Volkov broadcast a message on all frequencies. She knew the Council was listening. She knew the swarm would hear it. That was the point. This is Admiral Sarah Volkov of the United Earth Defense Force. To the Krathek swarm, hear this. You came to our space. You killed our people. You thought we were weak prey. Her voice was hard as steel. You were wrong. For every human world you burn, we will scour 10 of yours from existence. We will hunt you across the galaxy. We will not stop. We will not negotiate. We will fight until you are extinct or you leave our space forever. She paused, then added something that made the Council observers go silent. And to the Galactic Council, watching from a safe distance, you abandoned us when we needed you. Remember that. Because we're going to remember it too. The transmission ended. In the Council chambers, 47 species sat in stunned silence. They had made calculations about humanity. They had assumed humans would fight defensively, try to evacuate, eventually surrender. They had been wrong about everything. The humans weren't running. They weren't asking for help. They were winning, and they were doing it with weapons and tactics the Council had spent millennia trying to ban. Even more disturbing was the message they had sent. It wasn't just a military threat, it was a promise. Humanity had a long memory. They would remember this betrayal forever. In the cold equations of galactic politics, the Council had just made a terrible mistake. They had created an enemy far more dangerous than the Krathek swarm. They had made an enemy of humanity. And humans, as the galaxy was learning, were very, very good at holding grudges. The liberation of Zalthor Prime was not part of humanity's original plan. The planet was a Vryn collective world, home to 3 billion civilians. It was also 200 light-years from the nearest human colony. When the Krathek swarm overran it 3 weeks earlier, the Galactic Council had written it off as lost. Admiral Volkov had other ideas. We're not defending anymore, she told her senior staff. We're hunting. The swarm thinks they can hit our worlds and retreat to digest their gains. We're going to teach them that nowhere is safe. General Webb looked at the tactical display with concern. Ma'am, Zalthor is deep in Council space. If we send forces there, we'll be stretched thin defending our own systems. Then we'd better win quickly. Volkov highlighted 3 other systems on the map. The swarm has occupied these worlds too. Council worlds with Council citizens. The Council abandoned them. We're going to save them. Why? Webb asked bluntly. They betrayed us. Because it's the right thing to do. And because when this war is over, everyone will remember who saved them and who didn't. Volkov smiled coldly. Besides, nothing will hurt the Council's pride more than being rescued by the humans they abandoned. UEDF 3rd Fleet, commanded by Admiral James Park, arrived at Zalthor Prime with 800 warships. The swarm had left a garrison of 500 bioships to process the planet's biomass. They were not expecting an attack. The battle lasted 2 hours. Human ships dropped out of FTL inside the planet's orbital space, already firing. The surprise was total. Swarm ships barely had time to form defensive positions before nuclear missiles began detonating across their formations. But the real battle was on the ground. The swarm had begun, harvesting the Vryn population. Millions were already dead, absorbed into the swarm's biomass. The survivors were trapped in shelter complexes, waiting for death. When human dropships began landing, the Vryn thought they were hallucinating from fear. Colonel Sarah Okonkwo led the 7th Marine Division down to the planet's surface. 5,000 soldiers in powered armor, armed with weapons that made the swarm biowarriors look primitive. The fighting was brutal and close range, exactly what humans were good at. Gas masks on, Okonkwo ordered as her unit approached a swarm infestation zone. Deploying chemical agents. The weapon was simple. Chlorine gas mixed with a nerve agent designed specifically for swarm biology. Human scientists had spent weeks analyzing captured biomatter to create the perfect poison. The gas rolled across the swarm positions like a green fog of death. Swarm warriors tried to adapt, but adaptation took time. They didn't have time. Human Marines followed the gas, firing incendiary rounds at everything that moved. The swarm had never faced an enemy willing to use fire and poison and bullets all at once. When the shelter complexes were secured, the Vryn civilians emerged to find human soldiers standing guard. One of them, a female Vryn with all 4 eyes wide with shock, approached Colonel Okonkwo. "You came back," she said in broken English. The Council said no one was coming. Okonkwo removed her helmet, revealing a face scarred from combat. The council left you. We didn't. The Vryn began to cry. Within minutes, thousands of civilians were emerging from shelters, seeing human soldiers everywhere. The species that the council had abandoned was saving them. The irony was not lost on anyone. Similar scenes played out across 3 more council worlds. Human fleets arrived without warning, crushed swarm garrisons and liberated populations that had given up hope. Each time the freed civilians asked the same question: why would humans help the species that betrayed them? The answer was always the same: because it was right. The Galactic Council was forced to watch as humanity did what they should have done. The political fallout was immediate and devastating. Protests erupted on council worlds. Citizens demanded to know why humans were saving people, while their own government did nothing. Ambassador Thexelar of the Vryn Collective stood in the council chamber, her 4 eyes fixed on the holographic display showing human soldiers protecting Vryn civilians. She felt shame burning in her chest. We were wrong, she said quietly. The chamber went silent. We calculated that humanity was expendable. We were wrong about their military strength. We were wrong about their character. And we were wrong to abandon them. The Zeldan representative clicked in agitation. You cannot be suggesting we ask them for help. After everything that has happened, that's exactly what I'm suggesting. The swarm is adapting to our tactics. They're pushing toward the core worlds. Our fleets cannot stop them, but humanity can. They'll demand concessions, reparations, power in the council. Then we give it to them. Thexelar's voice rose with emotion. Do you want to be right or do you want to survive? The debate raged for hours. Finally, a delegation was authorized to contact Earth. They offered a formal apology and a request for military assistance. In exchange, they offered technology, resources, and a permanent seat with veto power on the Council's Security Board. President Martinez of the United Earth Government received the delegation in Geneva. She listened to their offer politely. Then she shook her head. No, she said simply. The Council delegates were stunned. The Zeldan spoke first. You refuse our offer? Your people are still in danger. The swarm is still advancing. We're handling the swarm just fine, Martinez replied. And we're doing it without joining a council that abandoned us when we needed them most. Then what do you want? Martinez leaned forward. Nothing from you. We're going to fight the swarm because it's the right thing to do. Not for you. Not for your council. For the innocent people your government is supposed to protect. The delegates left Earth confused and disturbed. Humanity was fighting a war to save council citizens while refusing to rejoin the council. It made no sense by their calculations. They didn't understand humans at all. But the Krathic swarm was beginning to understand. The hive mind had analyzed thousands of hours of human combat footage. It had studied human tactics, human weapons, human psychology. The analysis reached a conclusion that disturbed the swarm queen. Humans were dangerous not because of their technology, but because of their nature. They fought with calculated brutality when necessary, but they also protected the weak even at cost to themselves. The combination of ruthless efficiency and compassionate purpose made them unpredictable. The Swarm Queen made a decision. Humanity had to be destroyed completely. Not just defeated, but erased from existence. The swarm would split its forces. One fleet would attack the Council core worlds. The other would strike at Earth itself. The Swarm Queen's logic was simple. Humans protected others because they were sentimental. That sentimentality was a weakness. Threaten Earth, and humanity would pull forces back to defend their homeworld. The Council worlds would fall. Then, with humanity weakened and alone, the swarm would finish them. The Swarm Queen did not understand humans as well as she thought. When Admiral Volkov received intelligence about the swarm's two-fleet strategy, she smiled. It was exactly what she had been waiting for. They're bringing the fight to us, she said to her staff. Perfect, ma'am? General Webb looked concerned. If they're sending a fleet to Earth, we need to pull forces back to defend. No, we don't. Volkov pulled up a display that made everyone in the room go silent. Because we have something the swarm doesn't know about. Something we've been building since the day we joined the Council. On the display, icons appeared around Earth, Jupiter, Saturn, and dozens of other locations in the Sol system. Thousands of icons, each one representing a warship. Ladies and gentlemen, Volkov said quietly, let me introduce you to the Sol Armada. The room erupted in questions, but Volkov held up a hand for silence. For 30 years we've been building ships. The sleeper fleet was our first line. This is our second. 5,000 of humanity's most advanced warships all built right here in our home system. Why keep them secret? Someone asked. Because I wanted the enemy to make exactly this mistake. They think if they threaten Earth, we'll panic and pull forces back. Instead, they're about to fly into the most heavily defended system in the galaxy. Volkov's eyes gleamed. The swarm wants to attack our home? Good. Let's show them what happens when you threaten humanity's cradle. The Krothek main fleet arrived at the edge of the Sol system expecting to find a desperate defense. They brought 4,000 bioships, the largest concentration of swarm forces ever assembled. The hive mind was confident. Earth would fall within days. Then they saw what was waiting for them. The Sol Armada hung in space like a wall of steel and fire. 5,000 warships in perfect formation, spread across the entire outer system, dreadnoughts a kilometer long, carriers launching thousands of fighter craft, battleships bristling with weapons. And behind them, the automated defense platforms. And behind those, the planetary defense grids of Mars, Jupiter's moons, and Saturn's stations. The Swarm Queen herself was present in her massive bioship, a vessel 10 kilometers long that served as the Hive's mobile headquarters. For the first time in the Swarm's history, she felt something close to doubt. Admiral Volkov broadcast on all frequencies. Krothek Swarm, this is Admiral Sarah Volkov of the United Earth Defense Force. You came to our home. You threatened the birthplace of humanity. That was your last mistake. She paused, then added 5 words that would echo across the galaxy. Welcome to Earth. Now die. The Battle of Sol began. Human forces didn't wait for the swarm to attack. They charged. 5,000 ships moving as one, supported by 10,000 fighter craft. The coordination was perfect, controlled by military AI that could process 1 million tactical decisions per second. The swarm met them head-on. 4,000 bioships, each one a living weapon designed over millennia of evolution. But evolution was slow. Human engineering was fast. The first wave of human attack was nuclear. 300 warheads detonated simultaneously across the swarm formation. The blasts were timed and positioned to create overlapping kill zones. 1,000 swarm ships died in the opening seconds. The Swarm Queen shrieked orders through the Hive network, but human cyber warfare teams were already there. They didn't just intercept communications. They rewrote them. Swarm ships received orders to move into kill zones, to fire on allies, to self-destruct. Lieutenant Chen Min and his team worked furiously aboard the Indomitable, their fingers dancing across holographic controls. They had spent months learning the swarm's communication protocols. Now they turned the hive mind's greatest strength into a weapon against itself. I've got 6 heavy cruisers responding to false retreat orders, Chen reported with grim satisfaction, sending them straight into our firing line. Confirmed, replied his teammate. 3 more are targeting their own support ships. The hive mind is trying to compensate, but we're adapting faster than they are. In space, the battle had become a 3-dimensional massacre. Human wolf packs tore through swarm formations with brutal efficiency. Captain Rodriguez's destroyer. Relentless led a pack that destroyed 15 bioships in 20 minutes. Her tactics were simple: hit hard, move fast, never give the enemy time to adapt. But the real power of the Sol Armada was just being revealed. The dreadnoughts opened fire. These massive ships were humanity's answer to the question, what if we built vessels specifically to kill planets? Each one carried enough firepower to reduce a continent to ash. Against the swarm fleet, they were devastating. Dreadnought Titan fired its main cannon. The weapon was a railgun 500 meters long that accelerated a projectile to a significant fraction of light speed. When the slug hit a swarm bioship, the kinetic energy was so immense that the ship simply ceased to exist. Matter was converted to plasma. The explosion destroyed 3 other ships nearby. Admiral Park, commanding from the carrier Valiant, watched his fighter squadrons tear through swarm defenses. Human fighters were small, fast, and deadly. The Council had abandoned fighter craft centuries ago as inefficient. They were wrong. All squadrons focus fire on their command nodes, Park ordered. Cut off the head and the body dies. 300 fighters swarmed the Swarm Queen's bioship. They were like gnats attacking a whale, but these gnats carried antimatter missiles. The explosions rippled across the massive vessel's hull. Bioarmor tried to regenerate, but the damage was too extensive. The Swarm Queen felt fear for the first time. Real primal fear. She tried to retreat, but human forces had anticipated that. A wolf pack led by the battleship Indomitable cut off her escape route. Admiral Volkov stood on her bridge watching the tactical display. All ships target the Queen's vessel. Concentrate fire. I want that thing dead. 200 warships open fire simultaneously. Nuclear missiles, railgun slugs, antimatter torpedoes, energy weapons, chemical weapons. Every weapon humanity had developed was thrown at the Swarm Queen. The bioship writhed in agony, its shields failing, its armor melting, but Volkov didn't want to destroy the Queen. She wanted to capture her. Boarding teams. You're up, she ordered. Marines in powered armor launched from assault ships, using jetpacks to cross the space between vessels. They cut through the dying bioship's hull and fought their way inside. The fighting was desperate and brutal. Swarm warriors defended their queen with suicidal fury. Colonel Okonkwo led the assault team personally. Her soldiers used flamethrowers and chemical weapons to clear corridors of swarm biomatter. The interior of the ship was a nightmare of organic tissue and alien technology fused together. It pulsed like a living thing because it was a living thing. They found the Queen in a chamber at the ship's core. She was massive, a bloated creature connected to the ship by thousands of organic cables. Her mind was the hive mind. Her thoughts controlled millions of swarm creatures across the galaxy. Okonkwo raised her weapon but didn't fire. Instead, she activated her communicator. Admiral, we have the Queen. She's alive. Volkov's voice came through clearly. Good. We're going to have a conversation. Back in space, the swarm fleet was being systematically destroyed. Without the Queen's direct control, the hive coordination fell apart. Ships fought independently and died independently. Human forces showed no mercy. They had learned from the swarm's own tactics. Total destruction. No survivors. In the council chambers, the 47 species watched the battle feed in stunned silence. What they were seeing should have been impossible. A species that had been in space for only 50 years was destroying an enemy that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia. Ambassador Thexlar spoke what everyone was thinking. They're not just winning, they're dominating. At the Council Core Worlds, a different battle was reaching its climax. The second swarm fleet had arrived expecting easy conquests. Instead, they found human fleets waiting for them. UEDF 3rd and 4th fleets had arrived just in time, jumping directly into the battle space. The fighting was fierce. Swarm ships outnumbered humans 3-1, but they had learned that numbers didn't matter against human tactics. The Council species watched from their planetary defense stations as humans fought to save worlds that had abandoned Earth. And humans won. When the last swarm ship fell, Admiral Park broadcast a message to the Council worlds. This is Admiral James Park of the United Earth Defense Force. Your systems are secure. The swarm has been defeated. You're welcome. The simplicity of the message made it even more powerful. Humans had saved them. The Council had done nothing. Back in the Sol system, the battle was over. 4,000 swarm ships had been destroyed. Human losses were 312 vessels. It was another devastating victory, but Admiral Volkov knew the war wasn't over. The captured Swarm Queen was brought before her in a containment field. The massive creature pulsed with bioluminescent patterns that translated to speech. You have won, the Queen admitted. We underestimated your species. Yes, you did, Volkov replied coldly. Now here are your options. Leave this galaxy immediately and never return, or we will hunt you across the universe until your species is extinct. Choose. The Queen's patterns flickered. You would commit genocide? To protect humanity? Yes, without hesitation. Volkov leaned forward. But I'd rather not. Leave now and you live. Stay and you die. It's that simple. The Swarm Queen considered. For a hive mind that had conquered hundreds of worlds, the decision was surprisingly easy. Survival trumped pride. We will leave. Good. You have 1 week to evacuate all swarm forces from this galaxy. Any ship that remains will be destroyed. The Queen was released. Within days, the swarm began its retreat. Millions of bioships withdrew from occupied worlds and jumped into dark space, heading for the Galactic Rim, the fastest military withdrawal in history. The war was over. Humanity had won. The political consequences came next. The Galactic Council was in chaos. 23 species formally withdrew and petitioned to join a new organization that Earth was forming. The Terran Coalition welcomed anyone who wanted true mutual defense, not empty promises. The old council collapsed under its own corruption. Within months, it was replaced by the Galactic Senate, a democratic federation where Earth held a founding seat and permanent veto power. Admiral Volkov stood on the observation deck of the Indomitable, looking out at Earth, blue and beautiful and safe. A young ensign approached nervously. "Ma'am, can I ask you something?" "Go ahead." "Why did we save them?" "The council species, after they abandoned us," Volkov smiled. "Because being human means doing the right thing even when it costs us. Especially when it costs us. That's what makes us different. That's what makes us dangerous." She turned to face the ensign directly. The galaxy learned 2 lessons from this war. First, never underestimate humanity. Second, never make humanity your enemy. Because we'll save you even if we don't like you. But if you betray us, we'll remember it forever. The ensign nodded slowly, understanding. And now? Now the galaxy knows the truth. Humanity doesn't need saving. We're the ones who do the saving. Volkov looked back at Earth. No help was coming, so we became the help the galaxy needed. Across human space, the fleets began to stand down. Soldiers returned home. The automated shipyards continued building because humans never forgot the lesson. Peace was precious, but only strength could protect it. The galaxy had a new power. Not the strongest in raw numbers. Not the most advanced in technology, but the most dangerous in the way that mattered. Humanity had proven that compassion and ruthlessness weren't opposites. They were 2 sides of the same coin, and that coin now belonged to Earth.